What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be doing a hopefully fast and straightforward repotting of this Trident Maple. This tree is a tree that I started from seed back in probably 2006 or 7, and it is exposed root with some modifications that you might not find in every exposed root. But for a long time it had a sacrifice branch on it, which unfortunately had to be cut off right here in the front. But it's actually making some interesting sort of texture, and the wound is already almost completely closed. Now, it's only early February here. I think in San Francisco, it's like the first week of February still. And this guy is already leafing out, as you can see, but none of the buds have really started extending yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it out of this growing container and put it into a glazed container. This is a container that I actually made, and I made it in 2006, around the time that that I started making this. But this has been sitting around my shop for that entire time, and now I'm going to get a chance to use it, I think. Hopefully the tree will fit. So last summer this tree wasn't particularly vigorous, and what I'm seeing here there are actually some roots that are not looking as healthy as they should. And so there's definitely some nice healthy roots here, but there's also some that are obviously were strong root tips and are now dying back. So after I do the repot of this, I'm going to go ahead and give this a treatment of a root fungicide to ensure that there's no pathogens in there, and then reinoculate it with good soil microbes. Usually there's a lot of inoculants out there, and I just can't arrive at an opinion as to which ones are the best. But anytime I use a root fungicide, I like to reinoculate, because it seems pretty much like if you're going to knock out all of the microbes in the soil, you're leaving sort of an empty petri dish for the first thing that shows up. And so repopulating the soil microbes seems like it's a safer bet than just allowing some random thing. Whenever I'm doing this sort of operation, you can see that I'm leaning the tree at a 90-degree angle to what it usually is, and off the side of my work table here. And that's especially important when you have more mature trees where you're concerned about every little branch that's on the tree. You don't want to take any chances with breaking any of those branches. So this being a handmade pot, and not exactly, I am not a master potter, and definitely wasn't in 2006. I had an idea of what I wanted to do with pottery, but very little experience. So I'm kind of looking around and seeing which one of the sides has different glaze characteristics and whatnot. So I think I'm going to pick this side as the front. The other thing I had to do was I made these tie holes here when I made the pot, but then when I glazed it, the glaze actually plugged up the tie holes. So I actually had to go through and drill that out right before I stuck the wire in. So let's test and see if this fits. Not too bad. I think I'm going to take a little bit off the bottom, not a whole lot. All right, right, I've set this up to eye level so that I can really look at the angle and exactly how I want this potted. And I don't even have the pot 100% prepped, but it's a really dynamic tree, but it does have a couple of things that make it a little bit challenging to pick the angle. One is this mass here is basically completely vertical, and then this is just going slightly up like that, ascending. And so if I try to take this off vertical by tilting it just a little bit, this gets closer to horizontal, which is a line that I don't really like. And it's kind of hard to pick exactly where. The other question is like how much tilt this way. When I tilt it back, we get better separation between the structure of the crown as it's developing here and the lower branching. And when I tilt it more forward, I get a little bit more of a dynamic feeling out of the tree. So I'm going to see if I can nail, kind of split the difference on those two factors as I tie this in. All right, I think that's the angle that I wanted at. And there's a couple of outlier roots here. This is one, and I'm gonna see if I can kind of tuck that down so it's following this one a little bit more. And then I'm gonna also use the tie wires to see if I can just kind of pull these in a little bit. I kind of like them, but I kind of think it's gonna look a little bit more harmonious if I kind of bring these down kind of closer to the rest of the root mass. Before I chop that in, I want to just double check that the angle is what I want, and it looks like I got it. So the gap here between these 2 feet is the front, and then this is just slightly off vertical, so is that slightly off horizontal, and I feel like the top of the tree is coming slightly forward, which is nice. So I'm going to go ahead and chop in a little bit more soil and then add some finer soil on the top and a little bit of sphagnum moss. All right, because I tilted it forward a little bit, there are some roots sticking out here, and I'm not too concerned about just these few fine roots, but I am going to cover this with a little bit of sphagnum moss, as well as around here to just sort of give the pot, effectively making the pot a little bit bigger. And if this were like a pine tree or something in a bonsai pot like this that was not deciduous and didn't like water as much as this tree will, I would maybe put a fine layer of sphagnum moss on there, but I'm actually going to put a fair amount onto this one to ensure that it doesn't dry out right after I've repotted it, and just to effectively to make the pot a little bit deeper. All right, time for some water. All right, fast and easy repot, and I treated it with a biological fungicide, and I'm gonna set it back out on the bench, and hopefully everything will go right this year, and I'll have perfect set of leaves all year. Almost never happens though. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time.